My name is Judith Lane, I'm 32 years old, and I've spent months putting my heart into planning my sister's wedding in Knoxville, Tennessee. Picture this. I was carrying heavy boxes of decorations, sweating over table settings, and arranging a buffet for 150 guests as my gift to her big day. But just 1 week before the wedding, I overheard a conversation that turned everything upside down. My parents and sister were sitting together in the living room, thinking I couldn't hear them. They were planning to make me babysit 12 kids during the ceremony and reception, without even asking me. Me, the one who had worked for free as the event planner, was now being treated like a nanny. I felt my blood boil. They thought I'd just agree like always. But not this time. I made my decision right there. I called and canceled the catering, threw out the decorations I had spent weeks creating, and booked myself a weekend stay at a nice boutique hotel downtown. On the wedding day, my phone buzzed non-stop with calls. My sister screamed over the phone, "Where are you?" I leaned back in my hotel room, sipped my coffee, and laughed. "Don't wait for me," I said. "And don't wait for the buffet." What happened next? Let's just say their perfect day turned into a lesson they'll never forget. Stick around to hear how it all happened. But before I share my story, tell me what time it is where you are and which city you're watching from. I'd love to know how far my story has reached. 4 months, I had poured my heart into planning Stacy's wedding, my sister's big day. At 32, I had made a name for myself as an event designer in Knoxville, Tennessee, and this was my gift to her. The wedding was set in a public park surrounded by tall oak trees and a gazebo, perfect for the vows. I spent weeks drawing table layouts, picking linens, and trying menu samples with the caterers. My evenings were filled with phone calls, confirming flowers, checking the buffet for 150 guests, and adjusting the playlist to fit Stacy's style. I even hand-picked fairy lights to hang over the reception area, imagining her face lighting up when she saw them. This wasn't just work, it was love. My way of showing what family meant to me. One Tuesday evening, I got home late, my arms full of fabric samples. The house was quiet, but I heard voices coming from the living room. I stopped near the stairs, not trying to listen, but my dad George's voice made me freeze. "Judith will handle the kids," he said, like it was already decided. My mom, Elizabeth, added, "She's great with them, and it'll save us from hiring a babysitter." Then Stacy laughed. "Yeah, she's always willing to help. 12 kids won't be a problem." 12 kids. My stomach twisted. They were talking about me watching 12 children during the entire wedding and reception, without even asking. I gripped the banister tighter, listening as Mom said, "She's already doing the decorations and food. What's a few more hours?" Dad grunted, "It's not like she's got her own life to worry about." It felt like a slap to the face. My parents and sister saw me as free labor, someone they could pile work on because I was reliable. All those late nights, all that effort, and they thought I was just their helper. I quietly went upstairs, my chest tight with hurt. In my room, I stared at my wedding binder, pages full of notes, vendor lists, and my handwriting everywhere. I had poured everything into this, but to them, I was invisible, a tool to make their lives easier. I thought about all the family events where I cooked, cleaned, and organized things just to help. Now I realized, they didn't value my effort. They expected it. I sat on my bed replaying their words. Stacy's laugh hurt the most. She was my sister, the one I had stayed up with after her first breakup, the one I cheered for at every step. And now she was treating me like I didn't matter. My parents weren't any better. Dad always called me to fix his computer. Mom always had me running errands when she was too busy. I'd done it all, thinking that's what family did. But this, planning her wedding and babysitting a bunch of kids without even being asked, crossed a line. I opened my laptop and pulled up the catering contract. My finger hovered over the email tab. I wanted to go downstairs and confront them, but I knew how it would go. Dad waving me off, Mom pretending to be surprised, Stacy rolling her eyes. Words wouldn't fix this. They had made their plan without me, so I'd make mine without them. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was done being their doormat. My place in this family wasn't what I thought it was, and that realization burned inside me. I needed to rethink everything, starting with that wedding. I needed someone to talk to, someone who'd understand. So, I texted my best friend Carol, asking to meet at a coffee shop downtown. The place was busy, baristas steaming milk, people chatting over lattes, but I barely noticed. I slid into a booth, my wedding binder still in my hand, a reminder of how much I had given. Carol walked in, and her smile faded when she saw my face. I told her everything, how I had spent months designing Stacy's wedding, only to overhear them making plans to use me as a babysitter. They didn't even ask me, I said, my voice shaking. They just assumed I'd do it, like my time means nothing. Carol leaned forward, her eyes sharp. That's not family, Judith. That's using you. You're not their servant. Her words hit me hard, like cold water. She didn't try to soften it, just listened while I vented about Dad's careless words, Mom's agreement, and Stacy's laugh that hurt the most. You don't owe them anything, Carol said, stirring her coffee. So, what are you going to do about it? That question lit a spark inside me. I had been angry and hurt, but now I saw a way out. I'm not going, I told her, the words surprising even me. I'm done with their wedding. Carol raised an eyebrow but nodded. Good. Make them feel it. I took out my phone and scrolled to the catering company's contact. My finger stopped over the call button. This was it. No going back now. I dialed, my heart beating fast. Hi, this is Judith Lane, I said to the manager. I need to cancel the buffet order for the Lane wedding this Saturday. All of it. The manager sounded confused and asked for a reason, but I kept it short. Personal reasons, I said, hanging up before I could change my mind. Next, I called the decor company. The table settings, the fairy lights, the centerpieces. Cancel everything, I told them. The woman tried to argue about the deposit, but I stopped her. Send the bill to George Lane, I said firmly. I wasn't paying for their mistakes. Each call felt like I was letting go of a heavy burden I had carried for too long. I wasn't just canceling services, I was taking back my self-respect. Carol watched me with a small smile. You're really doing this, she said. I nodded, feeling a wave of clarity. They had made their plans without me, so I was making mine without them. But I wasn't finished yet. I opened my laptop right there in the coffee shop and looked for a place to escape on Saturday. Knoxville's boutique hotels appeared, and one caught my eye, a sleek downtown spot with a rooftop bar and a view of the Tennessee River. Perfect. I booked a suite for the weekend. My confirmation email came before I could think twice. I imagined myself there, sipping a drink while Stacy and my parents panicked. The thought made me smile, not out of revenge, but because I was finally putting myself first. Carol reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're stronger than they think, she said. I felt it too, like a spark burning inside me. I wasn't the pushover they believed. Back home, I packed a small bag, clothes, toiletries, and my favorite book. No wedding binder this time. I glanced at my phone, half expecting a text from Stacy or Mom, but there was nothing. They had no idea what was coming. For years, I jumped at their calls, fixing their problems, thinking it was my duty. Now I saw the truth. It was always one-sided. I gave, and they took. On Wednesday morning, I checked all the cancellations. The caterer confirmed. The decor vendor sent a rude note about the last-minute change. I didn't care. I called the hotel to confirm my booking and added a spa appointment for Saturday. Why not? I deserved it. A few emails from other wedding vendors popped up, asking for final details, but I forwarded them all to George. Let him handle it. I wasn't their backup anymore. By Wednesday night, I was calm, calmer than I'd been in weeks. The wedding was only 3 days away, and I wasn't going. Stacy, George, and Elizabeth would face the chaos they created. I didn't know how it would end, but I knew one thing. I was ready to let them handle it. I turned off my phone, poured a glass of wine, and sat on my couch feeling lighter than I had in years. For the first time, I wasn't planning someone else's day. I was planning mine. Saturday morning, the wedding day, I woke up to a sunrise over Knoxville. The boutique hotel suite was perfect. Clean white sheets, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a golden view of the Tennessee River. For the first time in months, I wasn't rushing to fix anyone's problems. No wedding binder, no vendor calls, no family stress. Just me, a soft robe, and a hot cup of coffee from the rooftop bar. I stood on the balcony, breathing in the freedom. Stacy's wedding was happening across town, but I was done being their backup plan. Today, I was choosing myself. I relaxed on the lounge chair, flipping through a magazine when my phone rang. Stacy's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring, enjoying the peace before answering. "Judith, where are you?" she screamed, panic in her voice. "The caterer's gone, the tables are empty, and the kids are going crazy." I could hear shouting and clattering in the background. I leaned back, crossing my legs. "Sounds like a mess, sis," I said coldly. "But you didn't ask me to help, remember? You just assumed I would." She stuttered. "We need you here. This is my wedding." I almost laughed. "You needed a free babysitter and planner," I said. "Find someone else." I hung up, my heart steady. 10 minutes later, George called. "Judith, this is unacceptable," he barked, his voice full of authority. "Get to the park now and fix this." I pictured him there, tie loosened, guests confused. "Fix it yourself, Dad," I said calmly but firmly. "You and Mom made plans without me. I'm not coming." He started to argue, but I cut him off. "You made this mess. Deal with it." I ended the call, my hands shaking but my confidence solid. They had treated me like I existed only for their convenience, but not anymore. I took a sip of coffee, letting the silence settle. The hotel felt peaceful, soft jazz playing, kind staff walking by. I booked a massage for later, something I hadn't done in years. My phone buzzed again. Texts from Elizabeth popped up, begging, "Judith, please." I ignored them. Their panic wasn't my problem. For once, I wasn't the one cleaning up their disaster. I felt free, lighter than ever, like I had shed years of their control. I opened my laptop to check emails about a new client project, a corporate gala I'd pitched last week. Working on it felt good, a reminder that I had a life beyond their demands. Around noon, Carol texted to ask if I was free for lunch. She was in town for a work project covering a local festival. I invited her to the hotel's restaurant, a modern place with brick walls and fancy drinks. Over salads, we talked about work, her latest article, and my plans for the next event. "Heard the wedding's a disaster," she said casually, poking at a tomato. I shrugged and smiled. "They'll figure it out." Carol didn't press, just nodded, and we moved on to brainstorming my next idea. It felt nice. No pity, no talk about my family drama, just two friends chatting like normal people. My phone kept buzzing with more calls from Stacy, a voicemail from George, even a text from Mom saying, "This isn't you, Judith." I deleted them all. Their words didn't hurt anymore. They just sounded empty. I thought about the park, picturing guests wandering around, no food, no decorations, kids running wild. Stacy must have been furious in her white dress, George barking orders, Elizabeth trying to calm everyone down. I didn't feel guilty. They had always assumed I'd give in. But I wasn't their helper anymore. I had spent years saying yes to keep peace, thinking it made us a family. Now I saw it for what it was, a one-way street. I headed to the spa, sinking into a massage chair as the therapist worked on the knots in my shoulders. The room smelled like lavender, and for an hour, I forgot about the wedding completely. My phone stayed off in my bag. I wasn't hiding. I was living. Later, I walked through downtown Knoxville, stopping by a bookstore. I bought a light, fun novel and sat by the river with an iced tea. The day finally felt like mine. I wasn't just skipping the wedding. I was changing what family meant to me. By evening, I was back at the hotel, sipping a cocktail at the rooftop bar. The city lights sparkled below, and I felt calm and strong. Stacy and George's calls had stopped, probably because they were too busy dealing with the chaos. I didn't care how they managed it. I had given them everything, time, energy, and love, and they had taken it for granted. Today wasn't about getting back at them. It was about finally respecting myself. I wasn't going to be their doormat anymore. I finished my drink, ready for whatever came next. The next morning, I woke up to a flood of messages. Most were from unknown numbers, wedding guests, no doubt caught in the disaster I had left behind. I had turned off my phone during my spa visit, but now, back in my suite, I scrolled through the texts. Each message painted a picture of chaos at the park. One stood out, from Pamela Russell, a friend of Mom's. "Judith, this wedding is a mess," she wrote. "No food, no decorations, kids everywhere. I don't blame you for staying away." I smiled, imagining Pamela, a straight-talking mom of two, watching everything fall apart. She added, "They should have respected you." I didn't reply, but her words gave me peace. The park must have been a disaster. Bare tables, no buffet, just a gazebo and months of wasted planning. Then another text came from my cousin Matthew. "I messed up, Judith," he wrote. "I went along with George's plan at first, but I told him off today. He's furious." I raised an eyebrow. Matthew had been there when they planned to make me watch 12 kids during the wedding. He hadn't said anything then, but now, at least, he was taking my side. "You did the right thing," he added. I texted back a quick, thanks, feeling a small sense of connection. His fallout with Dad was the first crack in their perfect act, and it felt good to know someone finally understood. Pamela's next texts filled in the rest. With no caterer, guests had nothing but a water station and a few stale chips from a nearby store. The 12 unsupervised kids had turned the park into chaos. One knocked over a chair, another spilled juice on a guest's dress, and others played tag through the ceremony. Stacy, still in her white gown, was screaming at a vendor over the phone, trying to fix things. I could imagine her red face and angry tears as her dream wedding fell apart. George and Elizabeth weren't doing much better. Pamela said they rushed to find a last-minute caterer, a fast food place that could deliver sandwiches for 150 guests. It cost a fortune, about $3,000, judging by what Pamela overheard during George's angry call to the bank. The food came late, cold, and not enough for everyone. Guests were upset, some even leaving before the speeches. Elizabeth tried to play hostess, offering weak apologies, but Pamela said her smile looked fake, like she knew the day was ruined. "Your parents are humiliated," Pamela texted. I leaned back, letting it sink in. They had relied on me to make everything perfect, and without me, everything fell apart. I didn't feel joy, just calm satisfaction. This wasn't revenge. It was reality. Stacy had laughed at my efforts, thinking I'd always step up. George had ordered me around like an employee. Elizabeth had stayed silent. Now they were paying for it, in money and pride. The guests leaving early must have stung, especially for Dad, who cared most about appearances. I could picture him pacing, tie undone, muttering that none of this would have happened if I'd just shown up. But I hadn't, and that was the point. Matthew's second text gave even more details. "George blamed me for not warning him you'd back out," Matthew wrote. "I told him he should have asked you first." I could imagine the fight. Matthew, usually quiet, standing up to Dad's anger. It must have been tense, maybe even in front of guests, adding to the embarrassment. I didn't reply this time. Matthew's choice to stand up to George was his own, but it showed how my decision had started a ripple. Their plan had failed, and now they were turning on each other. Pamela sent one last text. "You're better off where you are." I nodded to myself, setting the phone down. The hotel suite was calm, sunlight shining off the river outside. I didn't need to see the park to know it was chaos. Stacy's perfect day had fallen apart, and George and Elizabeth were stuck fixing a mess they'd caused. I'd spent years covering for them, but not this time. The wedding was theirs to deal with. 2 days later, I was sipping tea when the doorbell rang. I had just gotten back to my home in Knoxville, unpacking from the hotel, still feeling the peace of yesterday. I glanced at the door, expecting a package, but my stomach tightened when I saw Stacy through the peephole. Her face was tired, no sign of her wedding day joy. I opened the door, tea still in my hand, and leaned against the frame. "What do you want, sis?" I asked flatly. Stacy stepped in without waiting, her heels tapping on the floor. "We need to talk," she said, her tone a mix of tired and proud. She stood there in my living room, arms crossed, still wearing her wedding earrings. "Yesterday was a disaster. Judith, you didn't come, and everything fell apart." I set my tea down and met her eyes. "Sounds like you had a rough day," I said, letting the sarcasm show. She flinched but continued. "I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean for it to go that way. We just thought you'd handle the kids because you're so good at everything." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "Good at everything? You mean good at fixing your messes for free?" I stepped closer, keeping my voice calm. "You, George, and Elizabeth decided I'd be your babysitter and planner without asking. That's not family, Stacy. That's disrespect." Her eyes widened like she hadn't expected me to push back. "We didn't mean it like that," she said quickly. "We were stressed with the wedding and thought you'd want to help." I shook my head. "You didn't think about what I wanted. You just assumed I'd fall in line like always." Stacy's face fell, and she tried again. "I'm your sister," she said softly. "We've always been there for each other. Can't we just move on?" I felt a small sting, remembering late-night talks and how I'd comforted her through heartbreaks. But it wasn't enough. "You were there for me when it was easy," I said. "But when I gave everything for your wedding, you brushed it off and asked for more. I'm done being your safety net." She opened her mouth, but I didn't let her continue. "No, Stacy. You don't get to guilt me into fixing this. You made your choice. Now live with it." She stood there, silent, twisting her hands. "Mom and Dad are upset too," she whispered. "They say you ruined everything." I didn't even blink. "They ruined it when they treated me like their helper," I said. "If they're upset, that's on them, not me." Stacy's eyes filled with tears, but I didn't soften. I'd spent too many years swallowing pain to keep them happy. "Not anymore." "You should go," I said, nodding at the door. She hesitated, then turned and left, her footsteps echoing as the door shut behind her. I sank into the couch. The silence felt heavy, but peaceful. I'd stood my ground, and it felt right. My phone rang, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was my Aunt Beatrice, her voice warm but firm when I answered. "Judith, I heard what happened," she said. "I'm proud of you." Beatrice had always been the straightforward one in the family, never afraid to speak the truth. "I was at the wedding," she went on. "It was a disaster, and they deserved it. George and Elizabeth were out of line, and Stacy should have known better." I smiled, her words soothing me. "Thanks, Beatrice," I said. "I just couldn't do it anymore." "You did the right thing," she told me. "They thought they could depend on you forever without giving anything back. You showed them they can't." We talked for a while about the chaos, guests leaving early, George's angry outbursts, all confirming what I'd already heard. But Beatrice didn't dwell on the drama. Focus on yourself now, she said. You're smart, Judith. Don't let them drag you down again. I promised I wouldn't, and we hung up. Her support settled deep in my heart. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Stacy's visit hadn't shaken me. Her sorries were too late, her reasons too weak. George and Elizabeth's anger didn't bother me either. I had given them years of my time, love, and energy, and they had wasted it. Beatrice's call reminded me that not everyone in the family saw me as just a tool. I felt stronger, ready to end this chapter for good. A week after the wedding, I threw myself into starting my own event planning company. The idea had been growing in my mind for months, inspired by the corporate gala proposal I'd written before the wedding. I called it Lane Events, a name that represented my own strength. I rented a small office downtown with big windows looking over Market Square. My first clients were a local couple planning an anniversary party, and their trust in me felt like a new beginning. I hired a small team, used my years of experience, and gave my full effort to every detail: flower decorations, menu selection, and lighting that created the perfect atmosphere. Within a few months, Lane Events was fully booked with corporate retreats and charity galas. The Knoxville News even featured me, calling my work polished and heartfelt. Every success reminded me that I was more than just a family helper. Meanwhile, Stacy, George, and Elizabeth were still dealing with the mess from the wedding. Beatrice, always honest about family matters, told me everything when we met for coffee. The ruined wedding had cost them more than money. George's image as the perfect host was damaged. Friends and co-workers stopped inviting him to events, whispering about what happened. Elizabeth's social group, usually full of gossip, had gone quiet. They had spent $3,000 on last-minute catering, but the real loss went deeper. Beatrice said they had even borrowed money to pay for it, putting pressure on their finances. They're still recovering, she said, stirring her latte. But they caused it themselves. Matthew, my cousin, had also pulled away from them. After his argument with George at the wedding, he stopped coming to family dinners. Beatrice told me he had called her, upset that George kept blaming everyone else. He's done with them too, she said. Their isolation was a clear opposite to my new beginning. I wasn't celebrating their pain, but I felt quietly satisfied. Their plan to use me had backfired, and now they had to face the results: financial, social, and emotional. I learned something powerful from it all. Respecting myself had to come first. For years, I'd let Stacy, George, and Elizabeth take advantage of me, thinking it was my job as family. I'd planned their events, fixed their problems, and hidden my anger just to keep peace. But family doesn't mean being treated like a doormat. Their disrespect cost them not only money but also the trust of people like Beatrice and Matthew, and the respect of their community. I realized that saying no and setting limits wasn't selfish, it was necessary. Their behavior, expecting me to handle their problems without question, caused their own downfall: a failed wedding, money troubles, and broken relationships. I didn't need their approval anymore. Lane Events was proof of that. My days were full of client meetings, venue visits, and late-night brainstorming sessions. I had built something of my own, something they couldn't take away. Beatrice's support, Matthew's courage, and even Pamela's messages from the wedding day reminded me that I wasn't alone. There were people who valued me for who I was and didn't expect me to sacrifice everything. That was enough. As I sat in my office reviewing contracts for a spring festival, I felt a clear sense of peace I'd never had before. Cutting ties with Stacy, George, and Elizabeth wasn't about revenge, it was about freedom. I wasn't waiting for their apologies or hoping they'd change. I was done carrying their weight. My life was finally moving forward, and I was building it my way. Thank you for staying with my story. If you've ever had to stand up for yourself, share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more real-life stories.